Welcome to the Catholic Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Matt Pinto. The topic of business spouses working as partners together in a business is one that might be a little intriguing to all of us, maybe exciting, a little daunting to others, but a curiosity to us all, I'm sure. Today, we're going to speak about the blessings and the challenges of running a business together as spouses with my guests, Jonathan and Amanda Teixeira. Stay with us on this episode of The Catholic Entrepreneur. Our program is sponsored by Mission Advantage. If you're looking to hire senior level leadership for your Catholic nonprofit in particular, visit missionadv.org. You can also see this information in the show notes. So as I shared, my guests today are Jonathan and Amanda Teixeira. They're the husband and wife duo who are the creators of the Catholic Money Course and the hosts of the podcast, The Catholic Money Show. They're also the authors of the book, How to Attack Debt, Build Savings, and Change the World Through Money. Jonathan and Amanda are the parents of 3 daughters and 1 son, and they reside in Omaha, Nebraska. Jonathan and Amanda, it's great to have you with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So we've become friends over the past year and a half. We've worked a little bit in a consulting manner, and I got to admit, I'm intrigued, a little jealous, and here's why. My wife, who's wonderful, she would have no interest in working alongside me, maybe in particular, but maybe in business together to begin with. So I'd like to start out with a simple question. Tell us who you guys are and what your apostolate is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, we are the founders of WalletWin and provide Catholic financial formation for the whole family. Online classes, a podcast, kids classes, we wrote a book, the whole thing.
We got our start back in 2017, and we're not strangers to working together when we started our business. We had previously been working as missionaries on staff with Focus, Fellowship of Catholic University Students, and we started our married relationship as teammates, actually. Mm-hmm. So we kind of tested the waters a little bit, didn't kill each other working on the same team. It seemed like it was going well. And then we had other, ventures that we got to work on kind of side by side, still working for the same organization, but in different capacities. And our own personal financial story kind of unfolded during those years. And other people began to ask us, how did you go about getting out of debt or saving up to buy a home or this, that, and the other? And we started coaching people. And that's kind of how our call within a call came about. And part of that discernment was, are we going to do this one of us, both of us? Are we in this together as a team? And we both knew that we wanted to do it together, side by side. And that was, no small thing to discern. And so we leapt in 2017 into this thing together, side by side, as a husband-wife duo.
Great. Now, I know the analogy is not perfect. I know with Dave Ramsey's work, you guys round some things out that add more of a Catholic ethos to it. But for those who are listening, that is a good word picture, that for the Catholic world, you do similar types of things. Is that pretty close to maybe being a descriptor that someone can take away?
Yeah, I'd say that's quite close.
Okay, very good. And we've discussed before some of the things that you believe that Catholicism kind of gives more air to. So let's just start out with the question, was there trepidation on your part about being partners and married? In other words, your work life and your family life being so intertwined?
You're saying yes, huh?
I was just looking at you to see what you might say first.
I would say, I don't know if I felt too much trepidation on it. At the time, when we started this, we were coming into it from a spot where Amanda was home with the kids. So it wasn't, essentially our livelihood maybe was dependent on one job anyway. So that wasn't a new thing. We didn't leave 2 jobs to do this or anything. And I guess if I'm being honest, I knew that the success of this would only be possible if Amanda was involved. So maybe there's trepidation on your side.
No, I feel like we actually, we kind of went into it excited and just full of possibilities. I think that's most entrepreneurs in the beginning of anything. And I think that's, how it should begin in the early days. And we discovered some of the challenges later on, but we were really excited, the kids to, he would leave early in the morning and then work all day and then come home essentially just for dinner time and then send them to bed. So we were excited about you being able to truly kind of co-parent with me throughout the day. And we would get to raise our babies together, tag teaming it. And you'd get to be more involved in their life. You and I would get more time to connect. We would not just be ships passing in the night. We would actually get to spend some more of that time together. We would have that ultimate flexibility over our schedule. Nobody telling us, you can't go to the zoo today because, you have to get this, that, or the other thing done. We could actually choose to do that because it was a nice day out and our family wanted to do it. So we were really excited about those things in the early days and only kind of discovered some of the challenges as time went on. But I would say in the early venture, we were just very excited about it. I believe we still are. The pros definitely outweigh the cons all day long.
Although you've addressed about 4 or 5 pros there, positives, one of which was you get to go to the zoo. So you invited Jonathan sort of into the zoo. So what are the positives and then what are the negatives?
We know what's going on. We both know if there's some big project coming up. So we're more attentive maybe to the other person. We know they might be a little more stressed right now. They might be a little more worn out because we just got back from this big conference or something. So we're more tuned into each other, what we're working on, what the stressors are. I asked Amanda to marry me because I wanted her by my side while life happened. And so it's great to be next to each other, even in business.
I would go back to, it was the shared load in our business, but also very much a shared load at home. I still do a decent bit more of the, child rearing or domestic tasks. I just have a knack for those types of things and maybe do a little bit more, but you get to be involved. You know what's going on with the kids. We homeschool, so you know what each kid is kind of up to and where they are with their learning needs, etc., in a way that you just wouldn't have the capacity for if we weren't working together at home as a team. And so I appreciate that our life is just very intertwined, very integrated, very one in many ways. And I think that, couples of yesteryear, when they used to have businesses that were truly those family-owned businesses, this is a little bit more what it was like. Parents weren't always just out, gone for the entire day, away from the family. There was a little bit more of that integrated life. And I see that a lot more millennials and Gen Z are craving that because for many generations now, we've had that separation and they're starting to kind of crave a little bit more togetherness.
In a pre-interview we did maybe a month or so ago, I think it was Jonathan, used the phrase knowing and trusting each other, that this really gives you ample opportunity for just numerically more knowing and trusting each other. Can you speak on that?
There's just more things to trust each other on. And I guess maybe even certainly in the beginning when we knew a whole lot less about how to do the business thing and do marketing and all that, there's maybe even more opportunity for trust that other person would figure it out. So it's there's just a lot more, I guess, vulnerabilities. So there's a lot more opportunities to be brought together.
Yeah. And I would imagine being partners in business, there are a whole host of things that maybe you guys know about each other that my wife and I, happily married 30 years, simply don't know. She doesn't know this inner world that I live, and frankly, I don't know much of her inner world because of this.
And I think that begins to cross the line of some of the challenges too. But yeah, we completely understand every facet and perspective of the other person, and I get to see Jonathan kind of in all of his glory, but I also get to see kind of in all of his struggle too.
John, you look surprised. You look surprised there when you said in all his glory, like that's the exception, not the norm.
No, it is really great though. It's kind of funny when we tell people about our life. It's like, yes, we homeschool, we work from home, we live here. Obviously, our parish is a block down the street.
Yeah,
we are together quite a bit of the day.
Wow.
So it's, it's normal, I guess, for us, but I can see how it is drastically different than what many other people might experience.
Yeah. I heard before on some documentary I watched that men typically are in their prime from 9 to 5 when they're at work. That's when we're locked in, and our families really don't see us in that regard. They only see us when we come home and we put our feet up with the clicker. And they surveyed a bunch of kids. No, seriously. They surveyed a bunch of kids and they asked their kids what their dads do, and the kids say, he jogs. Because that's all the child saw them. So the family is missing seeing the father potentially when they're on their A game. What have you seen in each other that you might not have seen had you not worked together?
My most favorite thing about Jonathan that I've gotten to see just as being business partners is he has this uncanny ability to make anything happen. I could come up with the most outlandish idea out there that I think could be impossible to create or come up with. Jonathan just goes into the basement and he just kind of gets into his genius. And next thing you know, he spits out this amazing product. Wow. Or he makes it turn into a reality. So he just has this genius ability to kind of come up with things very easily. He'll never run out of ideas or creativity. Whereas I run out after about 2-3 ideas. He might have a mile-long list right now in his back pocket of 6-figure business ideas he could launch at any second, just because he's just one of those types. And so sometimes, being the visionary of the one business we're trying to run together, I kind of have to say, okay, that's the business idea we'll tap in a year, or we'll start in 20 years down the road. But he is limitless on those types of things. And I don't think I would have ever known that or seen it if we weren't working together and I didn't get to watch him in his creative, just kind of how he creates.
Jonathan, how about you? What did you see that you might not have seen?
It's a real pleasure to work with Amanda because in many different parts of our lives, or however different, the work personality tests or whatever you call those things, we're almost always the opposites. And so the things that occur to Amanda, the things that she sees in a situation, the things that she thinks of are entirely foreign to me. It's like if she, we're painting pictures or something, and then she shows me hers and go, I didn't even know that was a color. So it's really great to see, especially, her strategic thinking and planning is leaps and bounds in front of mine, which is why, I was saying earlier, I knew it would be much better a business with Amanda involved, because those things, the seeing the opportunities, the who to talk to, the what project to work on next, all of that is her strength. And It's just really great to see her in that. We see it, of course, in our managing the family life, but it is a different color to see how it comes out in the business world.
So what are the challenges with businesses, partners as spouses?
A lot of, I'd say, the challenges are maybe the kind of the flip side of the positives. We know what's going on in the business, right? We're both involved. We know what's coming up on a certain project or something. So we're both stressed about it. It's not just, I'm sure I got this thing at work. It's just a lot going on. Well, we both have a lot going on at work. We both have a lot going on.
Both of us might need time to work, but somebody's got to take care of the household and the kids. So really we got to divvy it up.
If you mess something up at work, like you feel bad about it. Well, I didn't just mess it up for my boss or my colleague. Like, I messed it up for my wife. Or, I'm waiting on that guy at work. He just, he takes forever to do something. Like, well, she's waiting on me. And so it kind of adds some extra, of course, if we nail something at work or whatever, that feels really good too. And we know that better. But it can add some extra pressure. I guess it bleeds more. The struggles or whatever don't just stay at work, or we try to keep them at work, but it's the same person, right? We maybe try to swap out the hats or something, but again, it's the same person that we're dealing with. So some of that kind of bleeds into what we're doing.
I mean, we've built in boundaries over the years, but the early years we're 7 years into this. I'd say the first 3 years were the most challenging because it has a knack for exposing all of your deepest wounds, fears, and failures.
That's a great quote, by the way.
In a way that just other things don't. You can kind of cover them up and never have to really deal with some of those things in other capacities. But entrepreneurship, they're on the surface. When you're scared, sometimes you want to say things or do things out of your fear that have nothing to do with the other person. You're just scared that this isn't going to work, or this might not succeed, or how are we going to eat 2 months from now? And in those fears, being a woman, and I would say that most women tend to see money as kind of security and stability. And there's good reason for that.
Sure.
But in that place, when I didn't feel like we had that stability or that security, sometimes I would inappropriately blame Jonathan or...
You tried to fire me a couple times.
I tried to fire him a couple of times, Matt. And then immediately after I yelled at him that he was fired, I told him he needed to go back to work because I couldn't afford to get anybody else.
That's funny. That's really funny.
So, we had to work on building some of those boundaries in, because I would never go to a business partner who wasn't my spouse and just bleed out all of my deepest wounds and like fears that this wasn't going to work. And I just wouldn't do those things. Wow. But when you're familiar with somebody, when you know them, when they're your family, you can do things that you would never do with anybody else.
Yeah. And
so we had to learn that, okay, just because I can do that doesn't mean I should. And so there's a whole lot more of, zipping the lip or going to prayer first and just kind of, letting it all out with Jesus. And then he takes care of those wounds and those feelings. And then only what I really need to talk to Jonathan about is what I'm going to talk to him about. But that is a very real risk. And I think that a lot of spouses run into that and then automatically assume that this just isn't going to work because this is now about to implode our marriage and our business. And so we need one or the other to go. And so, unfortunately, sometimes people will pick the business instead of the marriage. We see that oftentimes, in the secular influencer world, spouses divorced but still running their brand. We would always pick our marriage first. The business, we would shoot that in the back and give it up to protect our marriage. But it doesn't have to be one or the other, but you do need specific tools in place to prevent either one of those things from burning the other one down.
Yeah, so for those listening, this is a point of discernment, because I can see, guys, Jonathan and Amanda, I can see times over the past 25 years when I had a particular struggle at work that it was probably better to not bring it home, because that would have had a double whammy. But then, conversely, on the other side of this, and this is what all of you who are listening need to discern, there have been 1,000 times when I've come home from work and Marianne just doesn't know what's going on in that interior wrestle, that it would have been nice to have that implicitly known without the extra energy of telling all the backstory and all that stuff as well. So these are questions that those listening will have to wrestle with if you're discerning this. So what traits do you guys see are needed to be business partners as your spouses? And I'm guessing the traits might be more needed during the times of challenge than blessing. But Amanda, maybe first, what traits do you see are needed? And Jonathan, maybe you can then add to those.
I guess I would say my first recommendation would be to be a person of prayer and to be a person very committed to discernment and to your relationship with God. I think that it's very easy in our day and age to just become distracted and to forget about prayer. And you've had your conversion, you go to Mass on Sunday, maybe even some daily Mass, but are you really praying every single day? I mean, that right there is essential to grow in virtue and holiness and to run a business with your spouse, certainly, and to raise your family for the Lord. And so I think foundationally, I just always want to encourage people before they just leap into starting a business together to really discern if this is what God's calling you to. Because it isn't for the faint of heart, and there will be challenges, and there is a heavy responsibility and a weight to it, but there's also beautiful blessings too. It's just, is that what God is willing for you? And is that what he's calling you to get out of the boat and do? And you won't know that if you're not praying about it. You can't just he might stir your heart by seeing examples of other people, but you can't just get excited because you saw somebody else do it and then race out and want to do it yourself. We have to pray about this. We have to ask him what he's calling us to do. And then to continue that, because again, there's always going to be ups and downs and junctures in your business where there might be a decision you need to make, or you might need to close it. If you're not praying, you won't ever have that knowledge or his leading and guidance. And so that would be kind of my first recommendation.
I'd say a spirit of humility, certainly to, as you go forth into this, it's probably going to go easier if you do, the two of you, settle into kind of like your lanes, kind of the roles, the jobs that each of you are going to do, and then you allow that person to do that thing. So I'm not trying to tell Amanda how to write that email or any of that.
I'm not telling you how to design a graphic.
Exactly. Yep. So we're honest with ourselves with the things that we do know and we are good at, or the things that we've learned, and honest with what the other person knows and know that, they're going to handle that. I don't know everything. So I think just humility in trusting each other, but then also understanding where do I need to grow and seeking out those opportunities.
So we have a prayerful spirit, humility. Give me one or two more traits that you think are needed.
Becoming organized and strategic and systematized. There's just so much potential for every day to just feel like chaos. When you are business partners and you're running a household and, we have kids running around everywhere and everybody needs something all the time. There really was, in the early days, we had joked that it always felt like Saturday. We never knew what day it was.
Wow, that's funny.
Everybody was going in every direction, and we weren't getting a whole lot of work done, and that was a little bit concerning. And we had to realize that, okay, no, we need to tighten the ship, if you will. We need to get some automations in. We need to get some best practices, some systems. And of course, that comes, from, I needed that. And so we really started having business meetings every single week. We learned that from the corporate world, but then we took that and we brought it into our personal life as well. And we kind of created some times where both of us could work together. We hired childcare. We got certain hours every week that we were going to actually work together as a team. And then there were certain hours a week when Amanda was going to go off and work, and there were more hours that Jonathan was going to go off and work by himself. And so we just kind of began to build a kind of a rule of life for our family and for our business, if you will. And that just made everything so much smoother, because then it wasn't every week just showing up to a blank slate, reinventing the wheel. Yeah. That's really stressful, and we all have very limited mental energy. If that's how you approach the week, your children will just suck every available brain cell dry. You need to have a plan in place, and with that, we've been functioning on that now for several years, maybe 4 or 5 years. It's just unbelievable what just having a system is able to allow us to do and create and to grow versus those early years of floundering and kind of recreating the wheel over and over again.
Sure. Give me one more maybe trait you think is needed for spouses as business partners.
It might sound funny.
Okay.
But you need to like each other and like being around each other.
Okay.
I know, you've married the person. Yeah, you do like them. At least I hope you do. But and it seems second nature to us. It's like, yeah, of course we would do this. But I think, we also will say that to people and they go, oh, I don't know if I could do that. Just not everybody is called to something like this. Not everybody, maybe there's those things that, at a certain amount of exposure to them are really endearing. Yeah. And one of the things you just love about your spouse. But once it gets above so many hours per week of exposure to that, you can't stand it. Yeah. And that's okay. It just doesn't mean you have a bad marriage, that you can never do anything helpful to the world together.
Sure.
So one of the things we go through that helps inform the decisions we make as a family is understanding what makes us unique. Most of the things that make a family unique are somewhat common to all families, right? All families like to spend some time together. All families like to have fun. All families think maybe learning is important, but some really think academics is very, very important. Some are going to really lean into learning an instrument and appreciating music. We happen to just really love time together as a couple, as a family. And so it's just really natural, and it makes it a whole lot easier if you're coming into it with that kind of preference, I guess, for being together.
Good stuff. This is all. I mean, these are all good filters for those listening to ask themselves. Tell us how it works operationally with the business. Do you have different roles? How did difficult decisions get determined, between the two? What if you disagree?
Yeah, just ops-wise, Jonathan alluded to this a little bit, but I kind of do a lot more of those strategic level decisions. Some of those higher level things, are we creating a new product this year? Are we rolling out a new course? Those are kind of the things that I'm constantly thinking about and going over. I also do a lot of our copywriting, just because I have a knack for writing. I love it. It's something that it brings me a lot of joy. Those are the lanes you're going to find me in. Occasionally you'll find me dabbling in some social media, because I really do like interacting with people in the comments. But other than that, I'm letting you do most of the other things in our business.
Mm-hmm, yeah, so taking those ideas for that new product, that new course, and then giving life to that. Amanda came to me and, I've got this planner, but I wish it had a couple other things in it, and I would just rip those out and just not have those. Could you just make me a planner?
A Catholic planner?
Yeah, and then, I go into the basement, and a couple days later, the big Catholic calendar and the big Catholic planner are born. Mm-hmm. And so we've got this new product. We should have classes for kids. And so, we write some scripts, we film some videos, and then again, I go into the basement. Couple, maybe a week later, the videos are edited, the worksheets are created, and now we have something else to offer folks. So there's a lot of that, the website, the graphic design, giving the business its personality. Yeah, just kind of figuring out how to make things work. I don't know what runs in your brain, but a lot of times in my brain, I just think, okay, well, what do we need for that? What do I need, like tech wise, to duct tape together to make those two things talk to each other to make it happen?
Oh, I never think of that.
Yeah, that's what's running through my mind a lot. So it's kind of the operational, making it happen, creative side of things is more where you'll find me.
So how do you get to decisions? And what if you disagree?
I could say, depending on the level of the decision, like how big a deal it is, and also I guess a mix of maybe how far apart we are. If there's a disagreement, we'll do different discernment steps, right? The pro-con list, loved by Ignatius, also loved by us. It's a pretty, quick and easy one. Other times, there have been multiple times where we have done a 54-day rosary novena to figure out something in the business. And I'd say maybe a lot of these aren't necessarily disagreements, but just we just don't know which to go for. And we can both see, the positives here or there. And then, if there is some sort of a deadlock disagreement, I think usually we'll kind of defer to kind of whose realm does that decision usually sit in.
Okay.
And then, what we just talked about.
And then Jonathan mentioned St. Ignatius. So there's a book that Father Timothy Gallagher has written called Discerning the Will of God. And he outlines, Ignatius doesn't have just rules for discernment, the ones that we traditionally think of desolation versus consolation. He has another set of rules about how to go about Christian decision making when you're not discerning between good and evil, you're discerning between only goods. Yeah. How do you actually do that? So we utilize that a fair bit. And then, we do defer to each other, in our areas of expertise and our strengths. I'll just kind of trust John, pick a tech, whatever email provider you think, I'm going to go ahead and just go with it. Mm-hmm. In the very rare instances, though, where we've maybe had a pretty big disagreement and we just can't seem to figure out how to move forward, we'll utilize something in our business that we also utilize in our home. So I tend to be more of a researcher, and I'm also a little bit more of a worrier. I could just beat something until it's dead. Really, that's a specialty of mine. And so, in order to not do that over every indecision we have or maybe disagreement, we've kind of developed a system where I will present to Jonathan kind of all my concerns, all my thoughts, all my hopes as well, and then he will go and kind of pray about that and think about it and consider different things. And at the end of the day, then, I trust that he'll be given the grace to make a decision and move us forward.
Great.
We've done that a multitude of times in both our family life and our business, and it takes all the pressure off of me, and we've never really been led astray. And, maybe we could have made a different decision, but God has blessed us in that, and it's prevented us from a lot of unnecessary fights, but also carrying around unnecessary worries.
So 2 questions in regards to the kids. How does it work operationally in your family with the kids? You alluded to that earlier, Amanda. And then the second's more philosophical. What do you think your kids are gaining, and maybe what do you think they're losing by mom and dad working together?
So for the first few years, the last, 3 or 4 years, our kids were in a hybrid homeschool program. And so that made it very cut and dry, very easy. We always knew that on Mondays and Thursdays from 9 to 3, we were going to get to work together, and those were really, really clear. And usually one other time during the week, we would have a homeschool team come over and watch the girls for, 3 or 4 hours. This last year, our family grew again. We adopted a son, and so we're changing things up just a little bit, but we are still, we're going to have those designated times where we have childcare providers for the kids, 10 to 15 hours a week, and then I usually have an entire day where I go and work, and then Jonathan usually has the rest of the week to work. So that's kind of how we've done it, because he's the one making everything happen, and you need more time to do that. Sure. And so that's kind of how it works operationally. We do both homeschool our kids in the morning before we start our workday. We've been doing that over the summer, and we'll continue that during the year. So we begin really pretty early in the morning, and then both of us will sit down just to kind of get it done as quickly as possible. And then we begin the rest of the day.
I just think it's neat for them to see, I think a kid always delights in seeing, their mom and dad doing stuff together, whether it's cooking, dancing in the kitchen. And so they see, oh yeah, mom and dad are going to go do that thing. They get to see some of it, whether we're making a funny video, they know, we're on an interview right now. Mm-hmm. So they know that there's some work that we do. It has to do with money and the faith, and that through it, we're helping other people. So it's good to, I think, just to see them like, yep, that's what we're going to go do. But then also at the same time that we're doing that work, they are also a priority. I'm going to come up on those days where I'm just working and have lunch with them. Or we're going to take that break and make sure that we have time to, play in the sprinkler or whatever it is, that they, even though both their parents are working on something and doing it together, that the thing that we're working on together the most is them.
Mm-hmm. Some of the benefits that I see from our kids is they are kind of becoming little entrepreneurs. One in particular is constantly coming up to us with new business ideas of how she can go, start a side hustle with this lemonade stand. Or a couple weeks ago, she went to Totus Tuis, and she made a bunch of bracelets one night and took them to Totus Tuis the next day and sold them for $1 each. When nobody told her to do this, nobody taught her. She just thought of it and went there. And I guess some kids had money, and she came home with money.
That's funny.
And so there's a little bit of, we're kind of creating little entrepreneurs in the making, and they understand that if you can just have an idea and you can take action on it, and that might go ahead and be the means by which God provides for you. On the flip side, though, because we have so much flexibility, I do see sometimes they don't always understand when we go into those seasons where we need to do a little bit more work.
Yeah, got it.
And we need to get a little bit more locked and loaded. Maybe it needs to be a 50 or 60-hour work week. They don't enjoy those times because they're used to the norm being a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more freedom. If we're going to go to the pool as a family, they want to play with both of us. But, in a busy season, we might both be sitting poolside working on something while they swim.
Yeah, that is a powerful lesson, though, in life, where they understand that much of life is, a slugfest, and it's going to have those challenges. So, no, seriously. So I think you're catechizing them in life there as well. How do you prevent it from trickling over into family life in a negative sense? Because those boundaries are not as clear as if Jonathan were leaving at 7:40 in the morning and coming home at 6:10.
Yeah, it can be tricky in 2 ways, especially probably running your own thing. There's always something to do. There's always something more to get better at or to work on or whatever. Sure, maybe I'm taking care of the kids. I'm going to get them going on something so I can get some work done. Yeah. Then I put them to bed. Then I'm going to go work. So there's a temptation there. So we need some time boundaries. And then also just, I don't know if emotional boundary is the right word, but, there was some sort of a conflict or something happened or maybe didn't happen on the business side, and not letting that spill over and being, short with the kids or short
Getting
with
brought
each
up
other.
at family dinner.
Yeah. So it was something we've gotten a whole lot better at over time, because we saw the need. We saw that things were trickling in, and it just wasn't fair to let the family relationship, the spousal relationship, suffer the downturns of the work relationship.
Yeah. You just triggered a thought that you gave me. I think it was Jonathan during the pre-interview. One of the challenges that a couple as business partners face is an overweighting in the direction of all of the family's livelihood is overweighted. And at times, some of the burdens are overweighted, whereas Marianne and myself, it's a little bit more bifurcated in both areas, the intensity of the burden. Although in truth, guys, when, things were challenging at work, she was feeling it at home through me, so maybe it's not as bifurcated as I thought. What about the challenge of the family being overweighted with one career?
We know this in personal finance terms, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, when you're business partners, you're kind of putting all of your eggs in one basket. Your employer is limited to one. There's a huge reward possibility, but there's also a lot more risk. And so we actually have had to, over the years, we've diversified our income so that we have a couple other passive things going on in the background that are not our business.
Clever.
Because of that very real risk of being overweighted there. If something happened to the business, what's going to happen to the Teixeira family? We had to look at that and be honest with ourselves and know that it's irresponsible. It's actually imprudent just to assume that this one singular engine is going to provide everything for our family, as well as, the business and the employees. We need to actually build in some other stools here to create some stability for our family in case this thing cannot perform or it underperforms or it goes away.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing that over the years because of that risk.
Yeah, or in case you fire Jonathan, which you've already threatened in at least one instance. So what do you recommend to people who are couples and business partners who are doing secular work? What would you counsel them on how they can safeguard themselves?
I think a lot of the things that Amanda had mentioned earlier, being a person of prayer and discernment, that applies everywhere. Not just if it's something, related to the faith. If you're running a pizza shop, you can pray and discern on, how you run that shop, how you manage most of our meetings, whether it's internal or external with other people. Like, we start and end them with a prayer. If you can't do that at your workplace, maybe you just do it privately before and after. So I'd say there's ways to incorporate that deep part of ourselves, no matter what the work is that we're doing.
And then, of course, just building in spiritual formation for yourself. Always kind of have a book that you're reading, or even spouses just committing to, growing together in that and, listening to certain podcasts or different things on Hollow. I think that there's a lot of resources now that weren't there 10 or 15 or 20 years ago to make staying plugged in with the faith and growing easier than ever.
Yeah. Last question. So I know you guys do workshops. You not only do workshops like the Catholic Money course for people, but you've also have kind of a secondary mission of mentoring couples who are doing home-based businesses and giving counsel in that regard. So just as a final word to those who are listening, maybe a single person, but they're married, but listening to it by him or herself right now, what counsel would you give them in discerning this question of, should we look at our family business differently, and should we do this together, or should we maybe not do this together?
I guess my final words, and they might be different than yours, but I would just say follow the peace. And we're always looking and examining things by their fruits. Does the idea of starting a business together, does it excite you? Does it bring you peace and joy? And, that's a really good sign that these are seeds being planted and watered by the Lord, and the Holy Spirit is guiding you in it. And then again, continue to examine that as things are getting off the ground. We mentioned many challenges that we face, but at any given day, when we sat down to continue to do that discernment, there was only peace in continuing the mission, in continuing to figure out how to work together. Or because of the sacramental nature of our marriage, we would receive grace there, and somehow it would kind of bring life back to our business because of that unique relationship. So that's why I always encourage people to examine the fruits and to stay where peace is leading you. And at any given moment, if we didn't have the peace, or it just looked like the Lord was ready to just tear the business down, we would have followed that as well. And so just be detached and willing to follow the Spirit wherever He's going to lead.
It was just thorough discernment, I'd say. And going through those rules Amanda mentioned earlier of what would you tell somebody else in that same situation? Looking back at the end of your life or at the final judgment, what would you think of that decision? Would you regret it? Which way, or would you take it? And then the pro-con list. So those are really tried and true methods that we use. I think that, the saints have used and taught, and doing that in looking for the peace, looking for what those fruits are internally, externally. There have been times in our life where kind of stepping back and seeing the fruit, seeing how that discussion is going and what it's all stirring up in us, it's not even worth continuing down that road. Because if this is where we're at, just thinking about it, just think what'll happen if we even try it. Or the other way around, like, oh, wow, this is really great. And it's just an idea. Like, let's keep going. So that's what I would say, yeah.
Great. A lot of good insights that I think people are going to hear and listen and take to heart and use as filters to make their own discernments. How can people reach you and your work if they want to learn more about the Wallet Win Apostolate and the courses that you offer within that?
One of the best ways is listening to our podcast, The Catholic Money Show. You can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts or watch it on YouTube. Just search The Catholic Money Show in your favorite player or app, and you'll find us, new episodes every week. And then you can head on over to Wallet Win, W-I-N, walletwin.com. You can learn more about our Catholic Money Academy, our kids programs, our family emergency binder, the Big Catholic Calendar. All of that's there waiting for you and more. And then on social media, we are at WalletWin, wherever you're on social media.
Very good. It was really, really great, guys. And we're also going to give that resource out that will have your branding and your contact information on it as well. So, Amanda, Jonathan, great chatting with you. We will, I'm sure, see you in the not terribly distant future.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Bye.
you.
All right, bye-bye. Well, I got a lot of insights from that interview with Jonathan and Amanda. Hopefully you did as well on the topic of spouses as business partners. And thanks to our sponsor, Mission Advantage. If you're hiring a senior level position for your Catholic nonprofit, Mission Advantage is your solution. You can find their information in our show notes or visit missionadv.org. Also, please follow us on whatever platform on which you listen to the show. It really helps us when you do sign up, and you'll hear when we're releasing our new episodes. And lastly, we're doing something a little different beginning now. We have our new Catholic Entrepreneur mugs that we're going to give away to people who sign up for our email list. You can sign up at catholicentrepreneur.org, and each month we're going to give away at least 3 mugs. We're going to randomly choose names and just mail you a gift in the mail. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again on the Catholic Entrepreneur podcast.